Hello, this is Come Home America with Nick Hancock, the podcast that narrates and navigates America's twin crises of identity and order. And this is episode 19. And our guest today is Mike Maharrey, Communications Director for the 10th Amendment Center. And he is the author of a couple books. I have one, so I'll show that one. He's the author of Our Last Hope. And this book, the subtitle, Rediscovering the Lost Path to Liberty. And it's a great manual on nullification. But he's also the author of the Constitution, a user's guide, a user's manual. Can you correct me on that real quick? Sorry.
Owner's manual. Owner's manual. Yeah.
The Constitution and owner's manual. So, if you subscribe to my newsletter, then, or if you hear this show often enough, you know that I'm often counting on the 10th Amendment Center to bring us the latest updates. And Maharrey is the communications director there, and puts out a lot of great blogs on the and featured articles on the website there. But we also want to talk a bit about silver today, and Maharrey writes the news at SchiffGold.com, I believe it is, and does a show there. So also he's a podcaster in his own right for GodArchy, his own creation, GodArchy podcast, and that's, maybe we can get into that a little bit, but the main things we want to talk about today are this silver short squeeze thing going on. Just maybe some general information about silver, even if we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We never do, but what might happen with this latest sort of Main Street rebellion against Wall Street, as it were. And we also want to get into sanctuary states for the Second Amendment. And so a lot to talk about. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I was excited when I found out that you're doing a podcast. We've known each other for quite a while. And
that's right.
So it's cool to reconnect this way.
Yeah, it was maybe a decade ago that we met. Isn't that
something like
hard
that.
to believe? Hard
Crazy.
to believe. So let's talk about silver. First of all, do you have any? Can I buy some from you?
Well, you can't buy any from me because I'm not selling.
Okay, right on. Yeah, no one's selling, but the price is going up, I guess. So
yeah, in fact, right now it's hard to, from what I'm hearing, there's already kind of a shortage of, like, for coins and physical. And for people who don't understand or know what's going on, probably most everybody's heard about the incident with the GameStop stock last week. In essence, we had a whole bunch of people on Reddit, kind of your individual investor that got into the GameStop stock and ran the price up last week and put what's known as a short squeeze on the hedge funds. And kind of the simple way to understand that is a lot of these big hedge funds will take what they call short positions. And in essence, what they do is they actually just borrow the stock from another broker. And then they turn around and they sell that stock at a certain price, expecting the price to drop. So then they can buy it back at the lower price and then give the stock back to whoever they borrowed it from and pocket the profits. And this worked really well with GameStop. There were a lot of short positions on it because it's kind of a dying business model. And it's not like a lot of people are going to the mall to buy a video game cartridge. That's all moving online. So there were a lot of short positions, and people figured out, hey, we could run this price up by buying the stock and squeezing these shorts. Well, now they've called them the Reddit warriors, which is kind of a fun term. And now they've turned their attention to silver. And there are also a lot of shorts in the silver market. It's true. I honestly don't think they're going to have quite the same success that they had with GameStop, just because the silver market is so much bigger. But we have seen a pretty good move. I think silver was up about 8% last time I looked. So a couple of bucks, and it's certainly moving the market. And like I said, we're seeing some shortages in the physical realm. But I'll say this about silver: even if you are not, take away the whole squeeze and the Reddit, that whole thing, I'm still really bullish on silver over the long run, because it is in its essence a monetary metal, like gold. And it is going to benefit from what we're seeing from the Federal Reserve with the monetary policy, the money printing. They're devaluing the dollar. When you devalue the dollar, precious metals go up. And then there's also some supply and demand fundamentals in the silver market right now that are positive. It's a very important component in the green energy revolution. And no matter what you think about it, it's coming, and the governments are subsidizing it. So that's going to put an upward pressure on demand for silver in the long run. So, take away the whole Reddit thing. I still think silver is a fantastic buy. It is absolutely undervalued, and it probably will run it up to some degree. But I don't think it'll be what we saw with GameStop. But like I said, gold, silver, crypto, anything that protects you from the devaluation of the dollar is something that I would consider. Is if anybody's interested in investing and protecting the wealth that they have.
So based on the GameStop event, now we know that in that instance it was sort of I'm not going to say short-lived. I don't know exactly the situation now, but it seemed like an event that came unexpectedly for most people, and then it was sort of just this loud bang. You could call it the shot heard around the world on the financial markets, and it was just that one shot. And so it'll lead to other things. And so in that way, it's bigger than itself, because it has rippling effects. And I think even with silver, it's in a bigger way, because you might have, maybe because GameStop is funnier and you can make more memes. I've seen the silver memes and I've seen the GameStop memes. I'm not a gamer. I don't know anything about GameStop. I've never been to one. I have much more familiarity with silver, but the GameStop memes are way better. I get the memes more. So what I'm seeing here is maybe there's more excitement to get into this GameStop little prankster trolling kind of thing. Maybe you make money, or maybe you're just in it to just own the bankers or whatever it may be. But with silver, if enough folks get it, and there's an extra layer of thinking here about what makes silver valuable, and there's a lot of answers to that question. But if enough people get into silver, then, as you say, it may not have quite the effect in the short run that the GameStop play had, but in the long term, a lot of people are waking up to silver. They're getting silver pilled, as it were. So that could have long-term effects. And so I wonder, what do you think about the gold confiscation in history? Is that going to come back? Are people going to criminalize silver? Silver is known as the white metal. Could it be known as the white supremacist metal? Are they going to demonize? Are they going to call it a Nazi buy, like they were calling the GameStop people Nazis
I know.
for running that up? So I just wonder, what do you think? Do you think the government or other regulators are going to come down hard? Is Janet Yellen going to come out and make silver illegal to own, or what? What are they going to do? What do they have left to play in, as far as they shut down the trading on GameStop? Are they going to be able to do anything against silver if people go that route?
Well, I think that you're definitely going to see some ripple effects in terms of more government, more regulation in the investment world in general, just because of what we saw with the whole GameStop and what we're seeing now with silver. They'll call it market manipulation, and it'll be an excuse for regulators to swoop in. And, in my view, more government is never a positive. So that's probably, coming down the pike. As far as silver confiscation, I would doubt that would be on the table.
It's too heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you look back and there's a lot of people that talk about the gold confiscation that happened during the Roosevelt administration. But the truth of the matter is, there never was actually any confiscation. They never went door to door and took people's gold. Basically, what happened was people voluntarily gave it up. And I think we've seen with the way people have reacted to the coronavirus, that people are willing to do what the government tells them, even if it's stupid. So that was how they confiscated the gold. People just gave it up. They never actually confiscate anybody. Nobody's ever arrested. There was never any door-to-door confiscation or anything like that. Silver's even everybody has silver. You get silverware. I've got a big bag of silver coins that were minted before 1964. It would be virtually impossible for the government to really confiscate it. That's not to say, though, that they can't hinder trading, hinder legitimate markets and force it into a black market, and that's certainly a possibility. But I think at this point, the powers that be are content to let the mainstream think that silver and gold and even crypto are just these investment tools and maybe the realm of cranks and whatnot. And they're perfectly happy as long as they're controlling the dollar and the fiat currency. I think they're pretty happy to just manipulate that for the time being. What happens down the road, who knows? Because I think ultimately we are going to see a dollar collapse. You can't just keep printing money forever. And when that happens, then, Katie bar the door, who knows what's going to happen. So that's why, when it comes to preserving wealth, I do like physical gold and silver because I do have it in my possession. It's in my house or it's in a vault somewhere. It makes it more difficult to be confiscated. Whereas if you have something that's, a stock or an ETF or something like that, it is possible, as we've seen with Robinhood, for them to block buying and selling and whatnot and freeze your assets. So that's one thing that I think is a positive for gold and silver. It is a physical thing that you can hold in your hands and hold on to. And, even if the government does come after it, you can bury it in the backyard at least. So I like that physical aspect of it.
Right. And, we are going to transition into the gun issue, but maybe some final thoughts on silver. I do think about this push, and the push has not gone away. It started last year, and there's more articles coming out now about, how great a cashless society will be. And so they won't have to really take the silver from you necessarily. They would just digitize the economy, and you would have to be on good terms with the central planners of the economy in a sense. And so that's what they want to do is relegate silver into obsolescence in as far as a monetary metal if they can. And so that's one thing that I think about. I'm not exactly sure how we could plan for that, but I do feel like there is some planning going on somewhere about a post-dollar monetary system, whether it's overseas or within the United States or whatever. Folks are seeing it coming. We don't know exactly when. And in the short run, there's a lot of debate on among people who we generally agree with on terms of liberty and the economy and all of that. There's a lot of debate over the dollar and inflation and whatever. So no one knows for sure, but definitely something to think about. And maybe when we're thinking about these things, to start thinking about not just what our own personal practices are, but how we can sort of scale this up in terms of community and at the state level even. It could be state government or local government related, but even just with your community and some voluntary groups, if you pool your money together and have some community savings, it might be something to think about. Just considering where we've been in the last year and how quickly history is moving along here as we live through it. Now, just a quick mention on that point, since I brought it up, the 10th Amendment Center has model legislation, and there's already been news stories you can look up about states legalizing gold and silver as legal tender effectively, or at least different states doing it different ways, but in some way recognizing gold and silver as money and not letting the government use its monopoly legal tender laws to restrict the use of gold and silver. So real quickly, has there been any, I haven't heard a lot of that in the news lately, but is that something that you hear about still? I remember Utah being a big state in that realm.
Right. Utah, Oklahoma, I believe Arizona, and there may be one other state have actually made gold and silver legal tender, which means it is payable for all debts, public and private, which is actually the way it should be if you actually followed the Constitution. We've also seen a lot of states that have kind of taken a first step in this and repealed various taxes on the sale of gold and silver. And of course, taxes are a barrier to investing. They're also a barrier to using gold and silver in the transaction of business. So I know for a fact that Mississippi and Tennessee have both introduced bills already this year to repeal sales taxes on gold and silver. I expect that we'll see more of that as we move down the pike. And then, of course, Texas has created its own bullion depository that is state-run, and it actually provides not only the opportunity for the state actually owns gold, the state of Texas. They can bring that, excuse me, bring that gold home from New York, where it currently resides. And it also provides a place where Texans and actually anybody can deposit gold and silver. And then the plan is actually to make it possible to use that to transact business. You'll be able to transfer gold or silver to other people through the depository. So we're starting to see these infrastructures develop, these avenues for alternative currency. And you put it perfectly. The Federal Reserve has a monopoly on money, and anything that we can do to undermine that monopoly is a step forward. And I think the main thing, and you hit the nail on the head, the main thing is community. You know, gold and silver are always going to be money. They've been money for 5,000 years. They're always going to be money. They have all of the intrinsic features necessary for something to function as money. And, you know, there's always opportunities to even now start developing barter communities or people that you know that are like-minded, that if you come to the worst case scenario where the dollar collapses, where they go to a cashless society, where you can create black and gray markets and utilize gold and silver in that trade, they can really control the money system to some degree. But when you have willing participants who are willing to trade, you know, there's only so much that the government can really do. So I highly encourage folks to start looking at those communities, barter communities, and those type of things as possible alternative paths forward as you look long term and kind of plan for what potentially could come down the pike. And I don't think you have to be a nutty, you know, a prepper or whatever derogatory term you want to stick to it to realize that I think there are going to be some tough times ahead in the economy. You know, just looking at the trajectory of the monetary policy and the government control, anything that we can do to shield ourselves from that to whatever degree, I think it's wise to consider those things. So, you know, just things to think about as you kind of look ahead, especially if you're a young person, you have kids. It's important to plan ahead. You know, I live in Florida, and every year we do the hurricane planning. You know, you got your hurricane kit, and you get batteries, and you get all that stuff beforehand, because when the hurricane is bearing down, you don't want to be trying to run to Walmart to get batteries because they're not going to be there. So, you know, thinking ahead is always wise.
Yeah, we got 8 inches of snow outside right now. I just moved. Most folks know already. I moved to Indiana, and this is my first real like snowy winter because the last year was really mild, and
Right.
and we're stocked up. We're good. We're good. You know.
There you go.
So
Well, we
all
had
right, cool.
frost.
Yeah. Well, you moved to Florida, right?
I did. I moved to Florida about a year ago from Kentucky. So
Cool.
I'm watching the news and seeing the snow in Kentucky and being thankful that I'm here where it's not snowy.
Right on, right on. Yeah. Well, good luck with the hurricane. I'll be happy I'm not dealing
Right.
with that. So it's all
Well,
good.
yeah,
Okay.
there's that.
So as we're sort of joking at the beginning, but it's not a joke because I mean, I don't know how legitimate people take these things, normal average people, when they hear people being called, you know, these names like domestic terrorists or market manipulators or you know, preppers or Nazis or whatever epithet they're going to throw at folks. I don't know how seriously people take that, if it delegitimizes the media or the those types who use those terms or not. I don't know, but I think really to evade that is to think in terms of community and build bonds with people around these issues, because then you can't be scapegoated as just one of those crazy folks, right? Then you're going to have your family, your friends, your neighbors, whoever, your parishioners standing up for you. And it's just, I think that's really the level that we're at. And so in that theme, we can talk about Second Amendment sanctuaries, because again, this is going to be another one of those issues where those scapegoat folks as gun nuts or whatever it might be, domestic terrorists, as we say. So the Second Amendment sanctuary state idea, first of all, I first heard of it through the 10th Amendment Center a long time ago, the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And now there's a lot of news now, probably a lot of resolutions, maybe a lot of other just declarative statements being put out. I don't know how many have like some real teeth in them. I'll have to maybe look closer. Maybe you have them off the top of your head or something. But generally, there is this move in the right direction of townships, cities, counties, you know, whole states, whatever, saying that we will not participate in and we will not enforce federal gun control that violates the Constitution. And between you and me, we know that virtually all, if not just totally all of it. Yeah, all of it, right? Federal gun control violates the plain wording of the Second Amendment in the Constitution, and of course our rights precede the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as well. So you have those arguments that folks can be making at the local level. So the Second Amendment Preservation Act is picking up steam now. We got the Democrats in in power. And so we see this coming up now, like the sun rises in the morning. So what do you take from this? Is this real, what's happening now? Are people taking this seriously? Is this just posturing and political theater, which, I could be happy with in a sense, if it's good for something. But how do you grade the state of sanctuary states regarding the Second Amendment right now?
Well, I think what we're seeing in this legislative session is really positive, and I think the most positive bill right now is in the state of Missouri, and there's a House bill and a Senate bill that are both moving forward. Actually, they both passed committee last week, so they've cleared the first hurdle toward getting passed. And in effect, what these bills do is they prohibit the state from enforcing federal gun control, and these particular bills actually define certain acts that the state would not enforce. And this is an extremely powerful strategy because the federal government depends on state and local action to do almost everything that it does. I always use the example, if you've ever watched the news and you see the drug raids on TV, and you'll have the one dude in the DEA jacket, and then there's like 45 sheriffs and local police officers around. Well, I don't think the DEA guy is going to be quite as bold if he doesn't have the support of that local police department, local sheriff's office. And in effect, when you have this type of, we call them gun sanctuary states, kind of tongue in cheek, kind of playing off of the whole immigration sanctuary cities. But in effect, it ends state and local enforcement, and it puts the federal government in a position where it has to enforce its laws itself. And the dirty little secret is it doesn't have the personnel or resources to do it. And we've seen this most clearly with the legalization of marijuana. We now have 36 states that have legalized in some way, shape, or form, even though the federal government still insists that, we have full marijuana prohibition around the country. Well, they can't enforce it when the state allows it. And this has been demonstrated over and over again. So we're basically taking this whole weed model and applying it to firearms. And it's extremely effective. And we tell people all the time, there's some people that, Republicans will get a little antsy when you start talking about sanctuary cities or sanctuary states. Well, the reason they get antsy is because it works, and they know it works. So why not take that strategy and apply it to, something that we want to get done? So I think when you see these municipalities or these states that are legitimately prohibiting enforcement of the gun control, I think it can be powerful and an extremely important step forward. So not just from a marketing standpoint, but from an actual substantive, you could end federal gun control in this country if enough states were simply say, we're not enforcing this garbage. And so that's really the overall goal. And I think we're seeing those steps forward. Like you said, with Biden in office, I think a lot of people expect more gun control to come down the pike. Now, what's sad is that really this was a concern 2 years ago when Trump was in office, and the dirty little secret is Donald Trump was actually more aggressive in enforcing federal gun control than Obama was. So, no matter who is in office, we should always be concerned about federal overreach, because even if your guy is in power now, your guy ain't always going to be there. There's always going to be another Biden or another Trump coming down the pike. So the important thing is to limit the power of the federal government all the time so that it doesn't have when the bad guy is in office, that person doesn't have the power that we're so often willing to give to somebody that we think we like. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. And some of the stuff we've seen at the local level, where you have some of these gun sanctuary resolutions at the local level, some of those were really more kind of statements of intent rather than actually having any real teeth or any real effect. But the bill in Missouri certainly would have effect. A similar bill was actually passed a couple of years ago in Idaho, and it only addressed future gun control. But in Idaho, they will not enforce any future federal gun control that happens to come down the pike. So really excited about it. And we've seen some other states. Missouri, like I said, is the one that's really moving forward, seems to have the most momentum, has support of Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate there. So I think there's a fairly decent chance this is going to pass. And then we're also seeing Texas, I believe Arizona, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, several other states have similar bills that have been introduced. So we'll see how they move forward as the year goes on.
Sorry, that was my phone. All right. Well, I hope that Indiana takes some step like this as well. I actually was able to speak with a state representative and also a state senator recently, and I would say one of them actually kind of almost laughed at the mention of the 10th Amendment. And I think it's just because he's heard this before and he doesn't quite know what to make of it, and you're meeting someone for the first time, and you don't know what their angle is on it. It's something new. And so, but he did kind of laugh a little bit. But he heard me out and he said, you're the first one to bring up the 10th Amendment. Someone just the other day left me a message, about the 10th Amendment. And so they're hearing this, and, it could be from, an issue that the legislator wants to appear strong on the Second Amendment. And, at that point, they have to sort of remain consistent, and you can bring up other issues going forward in a sort of coalition attitude like that. You can build coalitions with folks on all sorts of issues at the state level. It isn't just, it can certainly, as you said, be the marijuana issue, the gun issue, all sorts of ways the federal government encroaches on liberty. And so we want to see that happen at the local level, not just because it's very effective, but also because it's sort of a return to what American civics was supposed to be about in the first place. So you're actually going to be growing your own like civic understanding of how you should be caring more about what's going on in your state and community, as opposed to Washington, D.C., where we're all just have this very embarrassing frenzy of emotions every 4 years. And granted,
Right.
I think the last two elections, I've granted myself a reprieve. I've gone into them with more gusto than before, just because they were more fun. But now that Trump's gone, it's not going to be as much fun. Not trying to excuse, the unconstitutional things that he did day in and day out, but it's like, I sort of grant some people a reprieve where it's like, all right, we got a little excited there. It was sort of a fun break, but now it's back to work and like back at your state level and get in there. And so also, again, on this show, I like to push sort of the community level minded thinking of things. And it's like, we've seen now the COVID restrictions are coming down a little bit, but when the COVID restrictions were really tough on closing down on some businesses, we did see in churches as well. And in a couple instances, I know, I think it was an Orthodox church in Florida, some church in Florida, where folks came out with firearms to protect the church, basically from the police. But they were telling the police, we don't need your protection. We have our own, essentially. And, they were very polite about it and very, tactful about it. But that's really what was going on in essence. And we've seen this with businesses as well, to some extent, if not just business owners defending themselves against the riots of last year, then folks coming together in numbers and in force to protect businesses from these health code violations or being shut down or whatever it is. And I think at that level, if we're protecting businesses, we're protecting our churches or whatever sort of institution brings the community together, then again, you're going to evade any sort of scapegoating that the media can pile on you, because folks will be waking up and know, like, hey, wait a minute, I know someone who's involved with this, and they'll be able to relate to it on a level that's not so cartoonish that the media likes to paint. So again, definitely something to think about it. And there are 5 million plus new gun owners just in the last year or so, and a lot of these folks who are new gun owners, according to reports from gun store owners and gun salesmen, they're not just the stereotypical gun owner, right? They're women, or they're minority women, or whatever. That I think they said that those were like 40% of the new buyers that they were encountering. So it's interesting to know that these ideas might be getting into communities that traditionally they weren't as widespread in. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do think, folks, if you're a new gun owner, it's as there are so many new gun owners, and we know the ammo is sold out just like silver, and we know that the prices are going up on all these things. It also means that the training that you want to get, or the lessons that you want to go get, those private trainers or those classes are filling up, and their schedules are being tightened, and their prices are going up too. So it's all the more reason, I think, to find someone who has experience and on a personal level maybe can walk you through it, and from there build community and build sort of some knowledge of who in your community is standing up for liberty and who you can support in that view as well. Just something to think about. But all right, so Mike, we're up at half an hour here. Maybe we can sort of close things out. So how are you feeling about this year? Are you optimistic about the things that we've talked about and other issues overall? Do you think that decentralization and sort of the 10th Amendment goal of decentralizing power and downsizing power down to the individual and the community level, is it going to be a good year for that, or are we going to have to experience more pain before more people wake up to the real solutions for this country?
Well, it depends on the minute that you ask me. I go back and forth because, sometimes I look at the macro. If you get on Twitter and you look at the political discussion that's out there, it's easy to get pretty pessimistic. It seems that everybody wants to centralize. They want to use the big hand of government to impose their will on everybody else, and that can be very discouraging. Where I am encouraged is exactly where you've been talking about, is more at the community level. When I'm actually out in my neighborhood or at my church or just even at the store and interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, that makes me more optimistic about things, because I think when you really start to tear off all of the layers, a lot of people are really sick and tired of politics. And I think there's a growing awareness on, across the philosophical spectrum that maybe doing things through politics isn't the best way to order society. Maybe using government force to make somebody see your point of view, maybe that's not good. And again, when you get on social media, that's all it is. But when you actually interact with people on a day-to-day basis, it seems like people are kind of tired of that, and people are just wanting to get along. They're wanting to do what's best for their families and for their friends. And it seems like there's much less animosity face to face than there is when you get out into the world of politics. I often say politics is poison. And as much as I do work in that area, I really do believe that. We're much better off trying to build community, trying to, just looking around and seeing what can I do in my community, in my neighborhood, in my city, to make this place a better place.
That's right.
And I'm seeing more and more of that. I'm seeing it in the attitude of my church personally, and so that's what makes me optimistic, because I think at our core, when you can get out of the political, din of noise, that I think most people have pretty much the same goals and ideals. They want to get along with the people around them. They want what's best for their children. They want to prosper economically. They want to be free. They don't want government telling them what to do. And I think there's that core root that we can always tap into. So in that way, I'm optimistic. And I'm optimistic, too. I think that over the last 4 or 5 years, the pathway towards decentralization has gotten a little less rocky. I think people on both sides of the political spectrum have realized that maybe things are different in California and Indiana, and maybe we don't have to have California policies in Indiana or in Florida. And maybe we can all get along a little better if we decentralize things a bit and allow things to happen more on a state and local level. And I think there's a growing awareness of that, and a growing awareness of the failure of centralization. So I think there are some undercurrents that are positive, but of course we have a long way to go. And so we're just going to keep plugging along at the 10th Amendment Center and doing what we can to preach the message of decentralization and do the work of decentralization by undermining some of this, federal heavy-handed overreach with the surveillance state and the monetary monopoly and the gun control and the healthcare control and all of these things the feds are trying to do. We're going to keep trying to break that down. And, the more the Fed tries to do, the federal government tries to do, the less it's going to succeed. I always think of the line in the first Star Wars movie where I think it was Tarkin I'm probably saying his name wrong because this goes way back, but he was talking about how the harder you squeeze, the more star systems are going to slip through your fingers. And that's very true. The more government squeezes, the less effective it becomes. So, so I'm basically overall optimistic because, I mean, why be a negative nanny anyway? That's just bad for your health.
No, absolutely. And they are desperate, I think, is why they're putting all the troops in DC, and they're trying to, intimidate us. So overall, I am optimistic. I share your same concerns about, this is serious work that we're set in this place and time to confront. So we take it very seriously. But at the same time, just like when Ron Paul said to have fun, the 10th Amendment Center brings a bit of fun to this as well. So I do encourage folks to go. And, by the way, 10th Amendment Center predates the Ron Paul Revolution, too. So and I know that you came along. You've been there for over 10 years now. So
that's correct.
Yeah. So, all right. So, folks, I'm going to take a moment right now just to show off, because I got this. You can't get this, maybe. If you're a member of the 10th Amendment Center, I got it. Maybe there's some left, but I do encourage folks to support the 10th Amendment Center, the State of the Nullification Movement, and they have history, strategy, success, the foundation. They set you up to just be an expert like they are.
That's the first time I've seen a physical copy of that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's why I'm showing it off right now.
I don't even have one of those.
It's going to be worth more than silver.
I wrote it. I don't have one.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So I got one. It's worth more than silver. But
yes.
And so, okay. So the books by Mike Maharrey, our guest, is Constitution Owner's Manual: The Real Constitution Politicians Don't Want You to Know About. I'm going to get that one. And then I do have his first book, Our Last Hope. Great book, real fun to read as well. So MikeMaharrey.com, 10thamendmentcenter.com. You can check out SchiffGold.com, where Mike Maharrey does the news there, and his podcast, GodArchy. And Mike, can you share, are you on Facebook and Twitter and those things before they boot you off? Maybe folks can find you there.
I've been really lucky. I've had very little interaction with the Facebook and Twitter police. So maybe I'm been too nice or something. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, what am I doing wrong? I'm not getting it.
They'll catch up to you.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. But yeah, I'm definitely on Facebook. You can just look up my personal page under my name. There's not a lot of Maharreys out there. I also have a professional page. And then you can also check out GodArchy on Facebook as well. You can find that. I'm on Twitter, Maharrey 10th. I'm not very good at Twitter. Sometimes I have a little flashes of brilliance, but I'm certainly no Michael Malice on Twitter, but I'm there, and would be happy to interact with folks. I'm also on MeWe now, so for folks who are looking for the alternative, and so yeah, I'm out and about, so be happy to connect with folks.
Well, you are the best, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on Come Home America with Nick Hancock. Folks, thanks for listening, and we will catch you in the next one. God bless.